Hi guys! In this video we will take a closer look at the technique of selecting the blow radius for frequency separations. As I said, the blow radius depends on the size of the portrait and the resolution of your picture. We have a pretty large portrait of a girl and I've created several frequency separation setups with different radii. Now let's take a closer look at both frequencies of each frequency separation setup. Frequency separation with 2 pixels radius. High frequency. We see here a bit of a texture, there's almost nothing to retouch. Low frequency. All skin imperfections and parts of texture are here. If we retouch a low frequency, an image will look plastic. Frequency separation with 5 pixels radius. High frequency. A bit more imperfections appeared. Low frequency. Skin pores are on a high frequency now, but there is still a faint pore structure seen. If we retouch this radius, the effect will look less plastic, but the result will be substandard. That's because we interfere with a micro-contrast of pores. Frequency separation with 8 pixels radius. High frequency. There are enough texture imperfections that we can cope with by using the clone stamp tool. Low frequency. Skin pores are on a high frequency now. There are only color spots that we can remove with the mixture brush tool. We chose a right radius. This radius is suitable for retouching. Frequency separation with 10 pixels radius. Here we also see similar to a separation into 8 pixels situation. It's important to note that there is no specific radius for each image. You will need to define the radius to separate frequencies so that all texture imperfections go to a high frequency and color spots stay on a low frequency. You also should understand what imperfections you are working on. In this case, the radius range from 8 to 10 pixels is most suitable for skin spots retouching. Frequency separation with 15 pixels radius. High frequency. Skin imperfections that have volume and color appeared here. That's not good. Low frequency. Only big color spots are left with no imperfections on them. It's important to understand that 15 pixels radius is not suitable for retouching tiny and middle imperfections on both frequencies. But using this radius, we can align big volumes with the mixture brush tool. And again, we came to a conclusion that the right radius value depends on the task. Frequency separation with 20 pixels radius. High frequency. Skin imperfections of all sizes are here. When working with the clone stamp tool on texture, you can damage the volume of your image. Low frequency. Big smooth spots are left, there's nothing to retouch. This radius is not suitable to retouch our image because all imperfections went to a higher frequency. Let's go to the next document where we will get a more understanding of what effect we can get when using various radii. Now we are making a retouch with 3 frequency separation setups with 2, 8 and 15 pixels radii. Look, here's all skin texture looks like plastic. There are no imperfections on this frequency, nothing to retouch by the clone stamp tool here, just some little tiny spots. The only thing we can do with the wrong chosen radius here is to correct big color spots. Now, let's go to a high frequency and try to remove imperfections. The texture is getting a bit messed, and it means that with this radius, when most imperfections are on a high frequency, it's recommended not to use the clone stamp tool, but to retouch only a low frequency, correcting big spots. And this is a frequency separation with the right radius. Here we start to smooth out various uneven color spots and imperfections. Here, on a high frequency, the texture looks good and imperfections are easy to remove and no color changes will occur. All color imperfections are on a low frequency and they have already been retouched, so it's rather easy to cope with the imperfections on a high frequency. Look at the difference of all frequency separation we made. As you can see, the 8 pixels radius is most suitable for this image to correct the skin imperfections. As I said, it's important to understand what task you create a frequency separation for. There can be different radius for every task. One value for lips contour, another for brows, and so on. That is, there can be only one frequency separation on one image or more. Train yourself to set specific tasks of retouching and choose a correct radius. Here on lips, we smoothed out some small spots on a low frequency and used a 5 pixels radius to do this. This is an example of how to choose a radius for a particular task. You should learn to separate every imperfection into texture and color component, so you could safely smooth it out using the mixer brush and the clone stamp tool on corresponding frequencies separately. But sometimes you can squeeze an imperfection's texture out to a higher frequency and correct it with the clone stamp tool. We'll look at it on an example of close aligning and background cleaning. And the last, but most important, the radius always depends on the length and the width of your image. For this picture, the correct radius was 8 pixels. On a smaller picture, your correct radius will be different. This means that you shouldn't rely on numbers when choosing a radius, but look at the very imperfection and understand how to separate it on frequencies. See you in the next video.